Hello, thanks for taking the time to listen to this short video. Just before we start, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions if that's okay. When did your cloud journey begin? How did it begin? Was it somebody in your organization who decided it was taking too long to get a development test environment, so in fact they decided to use their own credit card and pull up a subscription to Azure? Or was it some management who decided they didn't want to buy a whole new server and decided to move workloads into the cloud? Or in fact, did you actually start in the cloud? Did you develop a strategic initiative to help you develop a capability to get an edge over your competition? And if you did, what did you find? How did it work out? Did you, as well as all the benefits that you talked about, did you find any unexpected complexities? Did you find it more difficult to manage? My name is Jag Tatla, and I'm here today with Jamie Gann, our head of Fujitsu Uvance Cloud Services, and John Swanson, our head of Fujitsu Uvance Security Services. So Jamie and John will be talking a bit more about the brilliant work that Microsoft and Fujitsu are doing together, all aimed at helping you manage your estate, IT estate, more effectively. We're also going to be looking at how Fujitsu and Microsoft work together, in particular to use automation and artificial intelligence in achieving that. So Jamie, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jamie Gann, and I head up the product development within the Fujitsu Uvance Managed Services area in the portfolio. And that predominantly focuses on infrastructure and managed and transformation services. And as we move into the future, the focus will shift more towards continual optimization and continual transformation type services alongside platform engineering.
Yeah, okay, brilliant, thanks. And John, same for you. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm John Swanson. I lead the cybersecurity division within Hybrid IT, which is one of the cybersecurity divisions across Fujitsu. One of our key roles is to develop new, globally consistent, customer-relevant security solutions. And clearly, for us to be successful in developing those solutions and services, we've got to work with our strategic partners. Microsoft is one of those, and I'm delighted to be here today.
Excellent, thank you. So let's start with Jamie. We hear a lot about more and more complexity in the IT environment today. What's driving that, do you think?
I think over the last decade or so, there's been a marked shift in the way the world is, and businesses have had to adapt to that change. That adaptation has meant they've needed to become more agile in order to stay relevant. And one of the key areas that's impacted in terms of IT is a shift towards hybrid cloud. What we're talking about is where customers use the benefits of both on-premise, so that using technologies such as Azure Stack, and in the cloud, say Azure Cloud, to make the most of the positioning of their workloads.
Okay.
Moreover, I think there's also a move towards using multi-cloud, so using the best-of-breed technologies from varying cloud vendors to gain cost optimization and performance optimizations. And then on top of that, there's a shift towards microservices and containerization, so services such as Azure Kubernetes service. This allows them to be much more agile, much more scalable.
So, yeah, that's a lot of additional management complexity that's been introduced. Is that the only thing, just managing them, or are there other challenges too?
So managing your workloads across multiple environments and sort of across on-premise and off-premise has created a requirement for ongoing resource optimization. So by this is sort of balancing performance and cost optimization. And this adds complexity into the day-to-day operations. It requires constant monitoring and fine-tuning. You've then got things like the skills gap. So as sort of new cloud services become available, as you're trying to deal with multiple clouds, that you've got this broadening of skills required, and it's really difficult to recruit and retain people with those skills. And then finally, you've got kind of the integration management aspects of it. So what you have is data now all over the place, and you need to make it connected, and you need to keep that data flowing, and you need to keep that data secure.
All right, John, I mean, we just heard a lot about the complexity and the growth of that over the last 10 years or so. How does that impact security? What have you noticed?
Yeah, I think Jamie makes a really good point about complexity. So that complexity is actually part of the challenge that security professionals face when they're trying to secure these environments, particularly when there's a pace of change that organisations need to go through. So an example of this that we often cite is that the average number of security technologies within an enterprise, something between 40 and 80.
Wow.
So the challenge of trying to manage, integrate, make sense of all of those security technologies within a hybrid infrastructure is far from a straightforward task. And a couple of other things are really important to help organisations sort of getting visibility, understanding what's happening from a security perspective across that complicated estate is far from straightforward. Balancing user productivity with protection. So clearly you've got to enable your workforce to function, but also make sure that the security policies and controls are consistent. I'd also consider compliance as a challenge. So compliance across often federated global environments where you've got complicated different regulations and policies and sovereignty challenges. And the final one I'd fully support Jamie's comment on is skills gap. There's a recognised skills gap in the security industry. We are working to try and address it through things like artificial intelligence, things like automation and orchestration, but that does present an organisational challenge for customers to be able to manage hybrid estates from a security perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's sound it. So, Jamie, just coming back to you, how does Uvance HIT actually help us in that respect?
We have a number of services across 4 key stages to help support the customer both on their journey to cloud and once they get there. The first stage is advisory or consulting type engagements that help the customer on their cloud journey. An example of this might be our cloud readiness review, which looks at the customer's cloud maturity against a number of key pillars. And then makes the appropriate recommendations as to next steps and services that they can take. We then move into the mobilise phase. Now, the mobilise phase is where sort of a transformation really begins. An example of this is the cloud transformation assessment, where we do discovery, and that's both tools-based using tools such as Azure Migrate, and people-based discovery of the customer's environment, analysis of that discovered data, and then planning and recommendation as to the next step, so like an R assessment of their environment. Also within this space is things like Fujitsu Springboard, which is a standardised accelerator for building landing zones or Catalan landing zones. So what that does is it uses a combination of consulting and infrastructure as code and blueprints and templates to build parameter-driven standardised landing zones. Then we move to the realise phase. And so in the realise phase, this is about making the transformation, the application transformation actually happen. And this is a highly automated set of processes. It's underpinned by tools such as, again, Azure Migrate or the Azure Database Migration Service. And it utilises a library of standard transformation patterns. Once we've been through the transformation stage, the fourth and final is the manage and optimize phase. And this is where the Fujitsu Cloud Transformation Service comes in. Once all the customers' workloads are in the cloud, this is where we use automation and people and their skills to manage that infrastructure once it's inside the environment.
Okay, so I guess another implication of that is that we can help manage whether they're in the cloud or whether they're not in the cloud, and we can manage across the board. Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Another thing that this sort of implies, you've talked about a lot of resources, a lot of processes going on. It seems that there's more risk of things going wrong, perhaps, because there's more things. How does Uvance HIT actually help us in that respect?
So if we take, for example, the Fujitsu Cloud Managed Service, this is a service that we've built with automation at its heart. So core to it is the Azure Integration Service, which allows us to build modular services. And these are built on Azure Logic Apps, which allow us to automate key business as usual activities such as patching, backup, service catalog, those sort of things. We can cater for different failure scenarios and automate things like self-healing. We use AI Ops as part of the event management process for driving incidents into the incident management process. What this allows us to do is to discover, do root cause analysis, and even preempt potential outages or potential service affecting events. Because we're now getting this data from our AI Ops, it allows us to then build out a catalogue of automated run books that can be, again, driven by the event management, incident management process to enable remediation of issues without human involvement. And this then allows us to take our people and focus them on the more critical issues that are impacting our customers. Another area in which we use automation is our self-service catalogue. So what we have is a number of pre-built blueprint templates. These are all CAFA line type blueprints, and they're made available through a self-service catalogue. This allows us to apply things like the tags that drive our policies in terms of backup and patching as part of the instantiation of those services. It allows us to make changes to the CMDB when you instantiate a new service or remove a service. And keeping that CMDB up to date is really important in a highly dynamic world such as cloud.
Okay, John, both you and Jamie have mentioned complexity and increased risk quite a bit. How does Uvance HIT help in that situation?
Yeah, so good question. So Fujitsu helps by the provision of strategic advisory and consultancy services to our customers around the world. That's everything from security strategy through to technical implementations. Also, we provide managed security services underpinned by our strategic technology partners from our security operations centres across the globe. That global reach gives us some real benefits in terms of being able to leverage our global expertise, gaining deep industry insights, global threat intelligence views, and that enables us to kind of have a continuous development of our security services to enable us to better protect our customers. The second element, I think, was about artificial intelligence that we spoke about previously. So clearly artificial intelligence is fundamentally important today to deliver effective security services, and it's going to be increasingly important. And for us, it delivers two key outcomes. One is it accelerates the ability to detect and respond to security events because you're able to use vast data sources in which you can identify threats and risks, so you can find those quicker to accelerate that response and detection. The second half is a people benefit, because using AI effectively and automation tools, it enables you to get rid of repetitive tasks and duplicated tasks, and that frees up your security professionals to really focus on the important business critical security activities. When you combine that with sort of technology platforms and security orchestration, automation and response and advanced analytics, it enables us to kind of deliver services and build that trust for customers.
Okay, that's a great word. And as you know, Fujitsu's mission is to make the world more sustainable by building trust in society through innovation. How does Uvance HIT actually help us build that trust and get that innovation going?
Yeah, so security, Uvance Hybrid IT security is foundational and fundamental for the 7 key focus areas that Fujitsu has for 2 primary reasons. One, we need to build security into all of the services and solutions that we provide from all 7 of our key focus areas. That just is part of enabling that trust. And the second element is we've got to build additional security services to meet customer digitalization requirements that are over and above what we're selling as standard or including as standard security within our services. As part of that and how we're working with Microsoft, so we're working with Microsoft in a number of areas, the development of our threat monitoring and managed detection and response services. We're working with Microsoft in our cloud security, core capabilities such as cloud security posture management, cloud workload protection. And the third area where we're working closely is in our modern workspace security, so protecting M365 for customers. Examples include our managed services there, where we're providing security 24/7, protecting customers in that environment. But secondly, also where we provide assessment services, where we help customers optimize and leverage their investments in E3 and E5 effectively. So they're getting the very best security they can out of those two investments.
Okay. It sort of sounds like, you know, it's the same security that's needed everywhere. Is there a difference across different industries, different points of focus for security?
Yeah, so there are absolutely differences, but I think we'll start with the similarities, I think.
Okay.
So there are clearly some core security fundamentals that people need to do irrespective of industry. So risk assessment, secure by design, so not security by trying to bolt it in at the end. It's got to be designed in at the outset. Managing things like access control are fundamentally important. So these things that we consider just being brilliant at the basics, they sit across all sectors. Clearly for the sectors and the industries themselves, there are absolutely some differences. One is the type of threats that those industries face and the types of threat actors. And the second one is the assets or the things that organizations are trying to protect. So the examples I'll give you are things like financial services organizations, healthcare, government, defense organizations. They're typically trying to protect sensitive data, financial information and the like.
Yep.
Whereas if I'm a manufacturing organization, I may have some of that, but actually my most critical asset is my production line. So therefore it's important I take the right measures to protect that manufacturing line, which means you get those differences across sectors. And that also drives different things like regulations as well. And certainly in Uvance Hybrid IT, one of the areas we're focused on is operational technology and operational technology security. Now, this isn't IT. This is about protecting the hardware and software used to control industrial processes. So we've built services that enable us to identify the assets, identify potential attack paths, identify vulnerabilities, look for anomalies. That whole service is something we built in order to protect something like that manufacturing plant that I just spoke about in production systems.
All right, great. Thank you, John. That was really interesting. If there was one thing that you would want the listener to take away from this video, what would that be? John, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's how we tackle that complexity. So complexity is often seen or cited as the enemy of good or effective security. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make security simpler. Part of what we're doing there is we're working with our customers and Microsoft as an example to start to build a convergence or a consolidation strategy whereby we're looking to simplify the security by adopting more of the Microsoft security controls as an example and reducing the number of security technologies within an ecosystem. So that convergence and consolidation strategy is something that will drive and will help us hopefully deliver better security outcomes.
Okay, Jamie, what about you? What would you say is the key takeaway for you?
Yeah, I think I'd like to reiterate the complexity thing. I think from a hybrid IT managed service perspective, it's about using automation and AI ops to lift away the BAU activities and allow in the customer to focus on the things that are important to their business. So absolutely key is lifting away the complexity.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Fujitsu and Microsoft have now been working for nearly 40 years in a close partnership. As an example, just in May of this year, 2023, Fujitsu and Microsoft have signed a 5-year strategic agreement to bring their services together and develop innovative services for Fujitsu Uvance. These services will bring together Fujitsu's expertise in industries such as retail, manufacturing, and healthcare, and they'll bring together the various services of Microsoft, such as obviously Azure, but also Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics, Power Platform, and many others. The idea is to bring them all together, develop innovative services, and help achieve Fujitsu's mission for a more sustainable world. So wherever you are in your cloud journey, you can count on Microsoft and Fujitsu being there to help you along. Thank you.